Good afternoon, church. As Pastor Burmy mentioned, we went to a GCI workshop this past Friday and Saturday. The theme was faith, hope, and love in action. Faith, hope, and love have been called the primary Christian virtues. They summarize what it means to follow Jesus. The three are mentioned together in several verses. One that we can look at together today is 1 Thessalonians 1 and verse 3. This is the NIV. We remember before our God and Father your work produced by faith, your labor prompted by love, and your endurance inspired by hope in our Lord Jesus Christ. This verse might make it sound like a lot of work, and that's sometimes true. One thing we can say for sure is that faith, hope, and love are supposed to have results in our lives. These virtues lead us to do things that we wouldn't otherwise do, things that take time and energy and are sometimes difficult. We might ask ourselves, what is faith, hope, and love doing in our lives? Are we doing things that we wouldn't have otherwise done? That might be a message for another day, perhaps, but what I want to talk about today is how our denomination, our family of congregations, uses faith, hope, and love as labels for different kinds of ministry. Some churches call it upward, inward, and outward, concerning our relationship with God, our relationships with one another, and our relationships with others around us. Joseph Ticott Sr. had categorized the work of the church by using those three terms. More recently, we've been using the terms faith, hope, and love to refer to the same thing. But it's not just a change in labels. It's also being used as a way to organize the different ministries within the congregation. The terminology is designed so that all the GCI churches will have a similar organization, and that will make it easier for us to share ideas with one another across our denomination. Well, faith, hope, and love words aren't an exact fit. We recognize that faith is needed for everything we do, and so is hope and love. They're not separate departments. The business world calls them silos, that they are isolated from one another. They're labels that have been used to designate different aspects of ministries, different groups of ministries, and I admit it's taken me a little time to keep the terminology straight in my own mind because the word association game isn't obvious or intuitive, but that's what we have to work with and to share with one another. We need faith, hope, and love in all of our ministries, and that was the point of the workshop this year, was to have all of them working together. The theme was faith, hope, and love in action. Hope is the label that we use for all the things that go on in our Sunday worship services, facilities, music, sound system, speaking, children's church, so forth. Our worship services express our hope and our confidence in God, and Megan will be speaking more about that. Love is the label we use for what we do in relation to the world outside of the church. Some churches might call it outreach. That might be serving physical needs. It might be sharing good news of Jesus with other people. And Marianne will talk more about that. Faith is the label that we use for the Christian life. Some call this a discipleship ministry, where we learn more about Jesus and how he wants us to respond to him. It also includes small groups where we build relationships with one another. It includes other church life activities. I've been asked to champion this group of ministries, which we call the Faith Avenue. Now, the word avenue might seem to be a kind of an odd word. I suppose it is an odd word because I haven't seen it used that way in other churches. But the word avenue does suggest that we are traveling somewhere. As one person said on Friday, all members, all people are somewhere on the Faith Avenue already. Some are a little further down the street than others are, but we are all on this pathway somewhere. And the goal of the Faith Avenue ministry is to help all people move a little closer to Jesus on this. Jesus is faith personified. He's love personified and hope personified. He has all those virtues completely and fully. And the Faith Avenue ministry is to help us move closer to who he is and what he is in these virtues. The Christian life is one of growth in all areas. So the Faith Avenue focuses especially on growth. Some call it discipleship, but that word could make people think of studying the Bible, of sitting down at a desk and studying. But discipleship is really a lot more than learning facts about Jesus or about looking at the literary artistry of the biblical writers. I like to do that kind of stuff. It's part of our Zoom Bible study on Wednesday evenings. But discipleship is a lot more than just gathering information. Discipleship means being a disciple of Jesus, of being a follower of Jesus, not just for what he taught, but the way he lived. How did faith, hope, and love work itself out in the lives of the people who believed in Jesus? It led them to share the gospel. It led them to share their resources with people who had needs. It led them to love one another, to meet with one another on a regular basis. It led them to worship Jesus, to give him priority in all areas of life. In one of the discussions during the workshop, someone asked the question, why did the early believers meet together? Why did they form churches? Well, they had learned good news about Jesus. What was it about that good news that caused them to start meeting together every week? Now, if we learn that orange trees grow slightly better in slightly acidic soil, we do not form a weekly fellowship group to discuss this interesting fact. We do not gather together to praise this wonderful information. Why? Because it's not life-changing. It doesn't change or affect all aspects of our lives, but the good news of Jesus does. There's a lot to learn, not just to learn, but also to put into practice. If we really believe what Jesus taught, then we believe that love is central to the meaning of life. And we see the example in Jesus that love is a willingness to sacrifice our own desires, our conveniences, in order to help others. There's a lifetime of learning involved and a lifetime of living it out. We gather together to help one another, to worship the one who gave himself for us. We gather to encourage one another in the Christian life because we need that. Christ's love motivates us to love one another, to meet with one another, to have not just faith, but also hope and love. So the Faith Avenue includes not just Bible study, but also church life and smaller meetings of people who meet together for mutual encouragement and growth. We're doing some of that already, and I admit we have a lot of room for improvement in this. And I also admit I'm not very good at this. I hope some of you will be willing to help us all in this area as we grow together.